Hi, greetings from the Philippines. Welcome back to the channel for a coffee and a chat. Now today, I'm going to talk about a quite a surprisingly emotive subject, and that is buying property or building a house in the Philippines. But really, it could be any Asian country because the same rules basically apply in Thailand or in Cambodia, in the sense that you can't own the land here. You can lease it, but you can't own it. You can register a business, you can put it in your spouse's name, but at the end of the day, you can't own it. Now, the reason I say this is a emotive subject is there seems to be two very clearly defined camps. People either think it's a great idea or they think it's a disaster. Now, I am in the middle, to be honest with you, because I have no intention of building a house for now, but that may well change in the future. And I will explain why. But the reason I'm making this video is over the years I have seen a lot of disasters in terms of people building houses, primarily in Thailand, but I've seen a few here already. But equally, I've seen some great success stories. I've seen people build their dream homes and live there blissfully happily. So it's a mixed bag. But I keep getting asked the question, whenever I do videos, if ever I do cost of living or anything like that, why don't you build a house? You know, if you build a house, you would save on the rent, etc., etc. Well, I'll tell you why now. I would turn it round and say to you, why do you want to build a house? What is the point in building a house? Why is your desire so strong to do so? And why are you so determined to convince me to do so? Because generally as a rule, and there will be exceptions, and I am not digging anyone out, but in life's experiences, if someone says you've got to do something, it's either because they fundamentally believe that you should do it for your own good, or they're trying to convince themselves that they made the right decision. And of course there will be the odd tiny percentage who's being malicious, who, you know, wants you to screw things up like they have, but I don't think that comes into this conversation. But so many people are passionate about it. You build a house, you should build a house, I built a house, this was great, etc., etc. Well, if you did, and you are, I am very happy for you, genuinely so. Equally, those of you who say the biggest mistake anyone can build a house, and you know, don't do it, and they're idiots and they'll lose this and your wife will take it or your girlfriend, well, you know, it does happen, but it doesn't always happen. You know, things are not black and white, there are grey areas. And I'm not going to be contradicting myself now, because some people, I've mentioned in previous videos I don't want to build a house, but later on I've gone on and said if I build a house, or when I'm not contradicting myself, fellas. I am just not going to build a house now. But I do have aspirations to build a house in the future. But not now. But again, I will explain why. So, if we're asking the question, why would you build a house? Because a lot of people seem to come to these countries determined to build a house. Right off the bat, they get to somewhere like Sikihor. I know a couple of people, they've been there a couple of months and they're looking for land already. You know, people have long distance relationships. They land in the Philippines, they meet the girlfriend, they move straight in together, their next plan is to build a house. Now to me that's madness, but hey, each to their own. If you're in that boat, don't have to listen to me. My advice is just my advice. It's not even advice. It's my opinion. Take it with a pinch of salt, agree, disagree, entirely up to you. So let's say, why would I build a house? The way I see it, there are two arguments. One of them is you want to have a dream home. Well, don't we all? The other one is for financial benefit. And this is the one I cannot get. It's the financial benefit one. Because some people will say, build a house, as long as you can afford to walk away from it, don't worry about it. You know, well, there are some, that's salient advice. It really is good advice. But you shouldn't be so keen to throw money away. I get what you're saying in the sense that, you know, if you can walk away from it. But why build it anyway if that's your attitude? If you're looking at it and thinking, right, I can build this place, and if I lose it, then, you know, I'll just walk away from it. I kind of get the thinking, but equally I don't. Because what's your gain from building it in the first place? I mean, if you're investing in the stock market, you could look at some shares and think, right, I'm going to invest this much because I think I'm going to get this back for it. I'm only going to invest this much because I can afford to lose it. But what are you going to get back from building a house? You know, if you put $50,000 into the stock market, you know, into shares or an investment of some sort, you are looking at a return. I mean, you're hoping to double, treble, quadruple your money, surely. But of course you don't, there's a risk you might lose it, there's a risk it might not work out, but risk and reward, you do the calculation, the rewards outweigh the risks. But how does that work with a house? So I buy a house over here for $50,000 on the basis that I can afford to lose it if things go pear-shaped. Can't quite get my head around that one. Don't quite understand it. Because I could. I mean, if I wanted to now, I could spend $50,000, buy some land, build a little house. I could build something bigger than that. I could spend more, but I couldn't afford to walk away from that. I could potentially build something for $50,000. That was like about £40,000. Nice little house, kind of place we're staying in now. And if it went wrong, it would not, touch wood, be the end of me financially. I could still carry on my lifestyle, you know, it would be a bit of a kick, but I would expect to build that up again, you know, for investments and things over the coming years. But I don't get what the benefit of doing that is. If it's to keep your spouse happy, and that's the only way you'll keep her, then maybe you're the wrong person. Is it to save on rent? Because if it's to save on rent, this is what I don't get. We are paying 15,000 pesos a month for the place we're living in. And it's a nice little house. I like it. Don't want anything flasher, don't want anything bigger. We've got a small garden. To me, it's a pain in the arse with the grass and that. We're trying to get a local to come and cut it. I don't want hassles like that. We had a problem with the water tank. We've had no water for the last few days, and now the tank looks like it's screwed. You know, it's not my tank. I'll get the landlord onto it. If it was my house, I'd have to be sorting out the contractors, etc., etc. As I say, we're paying 15,000 pesos a month for this, which is roughly £200. So that's £2,400 a year, roughly. Okay, so I am throwing that money away each year. If I bought a house for £40,000 or bought the land and built a little house like this, and I think I could build it for £40,000 probably, around that figure, yeah, I'd save £2,400 a year. But if I don't build it and I leave the money invested, I will no doubt, hopefully, touch wood, I should make more than that on interest, you know, on Can't speak, can I? You know, on the stock market going up, etc. You know, if I've got like a £20,000 in an ISA, I hope to get, you know, 2,000 return on that over a year. You know, touch wood. If I've got £40,000 in ISAs, then again, I'll be disappointed if I got less than 2,500 in returns over a 1 year period. So, yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Because I honestly don't believe if I built a place like this, yes, I would be saving on the rent. But I don't think the house price is going to go up. Don't think I think the reason we're paying 15,000 a month here is because it's a nice little house, but it's in the middle of a barangay. The road isn't great, you know. There are problems with this area, which might not make it attractive to other Westerners. So there's no guarantee I'll get my money back. So this idea of it being financially prudent to build a house, I really am not so sure. Now, I'm going to sidetrack slightly because this is talking about building houses. Kind of applies to buying a house because, again, you can't own it, theoretically. There are ways around it, but they are risky, as we will discuss. But I'm not talking about apartments, not talking about condos. They're a different animal because you can own them. I've mentioned it briefly before. I can see the attractions of buying a condo if you want to live in somewhere like Pattaya or Jomtien. Can't so much see it here. I really can't. I've not done a lot of research, but the condos I've seen in the Philippines, in Cebu, Manila, etc., they're not very big. They're tiny. I mean, there is the old compact and bijou, but some of them are right taking the piss. I mean, you're talking tiny one-bedroom studio apartments. I mean, they've got all the kitchen fitted, all nice fittings and that, but they are so cramped. You know, I do not believe if you bought one of those, yeah, you'd own it, but would you get your money back? I seriously doubt it. Because as I've said before in Thailand, I would never buy a property in Jomtien, you know, with a view of renting it out, because the market's become saturated. And the same will happen here if it hasn't happened already. It might be a good idea now to buy a condominium, might be. Personally, I don't think it is. If you have done, good luck to you. Hope it works out. But if it is a good idea, they will build and build and build. A friend of mine the other day asked me if I thought he should buy an apartment condominium in Ho Hin in Thailand, because if they were building these new ones and they were a good price and that. And I said to him, look, I wouldn't, because the same thing happened in Pattaya. Ho Hin, can't say it, can I? It's rapidly expanding. It's trying to become the next Pattaya. Well, with that, any condominium you buy now, I guarantee you, over the next 4 or 5 years, 100 more will pop up. The market will become saturated, and it will bring the prices down. But if you are planning on retiring there, seeing out your days, and you want to own your own place, then yeah, fine. Somewhere to live, you will save on the rent, etc. You won't make much money when you sell it, but if it's a place for you to live, it is in your name, you know, then maybe. But anyway, back to building a house here. So even if I did decide that financially it makes sense for me at 52 years old, what about the risks? And they are manifold. I mean, anyone with the greatest respect, if you don't think it's riskier building a house in Asia than it is in your home country, then I think you need to have a look in the mirror and have a good long think, give your head a wobble, because of course it is. Now, the benefits of building in Asia is it's a hell of a lot cheaper than Western countries, but you've got a lot more protections in Western countries. You know, if in the UK sell a house, you've got to engage a solicitor. Got to pay them, they've got to do all the checks, you know, land registry, all the rest of it. They screw it up, you've got to claim against them, you know, and they will do the checks. You've got protections, the property's in your name, you've got rights by law. Over here you haven't, you just do not. First risk you've got is it's not in your name. Can't own the land. Can own the house, but you can't own the land. So you can form a business route. In England, Thailand, it's form a corporation. Okay, but there are risks to that. It's not in the spirit of what the legislation was created for. Don't exactly know how it works, but I know that's not what they were intending when they brought these regulations in. And laws can change. You open yourselves to risks if you go down that route. And there's a lot of people who've done that in Thailand, and the Thais are not happy about it. They're constantly looking at the ways they might change the rules, etc. And there is nothing from stopping them from doing that. Okay, you put it in your wife's name, your girlfriend's name. Well, immediately you're vulnerable. She may be a wonderful person and things may work out. If they do, fantastic. But they may not. And the law, certainly in Thailand, not so sure about how it works here, but it's not based on fairness. You know, it's not like a lot of Western countries where they'll say, oh, well, she lived here, she contributed that, etc. So it's fair if we do this, etc. You know, 50% or whatever. It does not work that way in most Asian countries. The law is the law. It does not consider what's fair. It does not consider, it's just the law. Whatever's written is the way it is. And the law says it's not yours, it's hers. So she can get you out just like that. Now, I'm not going to go too far down this route, but someone did say to me a few months ago when I said that's a bit of a risk. It's when I first got here actually. I said, what happens if you split up and she kicks you out? She says, you can't kick me out because we're married and you can't get divorced here. So I don't know how that works. I'd be interested how people say, because I never thought about it. I thought, because in Thailand, she can just tell you to go. And if you refuse to go, the family will be on you, there'll be pressure, and they'll get you out, and you will have no recourse. You know, you might go down and rent a bulldozer and knock the house down because it's yours, but that's got the potential of getting very nasty and going downhill very quickly. Better to just walk away, or better not to get yourself in that situation in the first place. So you can't own the property. Now, there is the lease option. And this is something that I envisage I will do at some stage. Because depending on the country in Asia, you can lease the land for 25 to 30 years. I think 35 somewhere now. But anyway, depends what country you're in. And then you can lease it again for another period afterwards. But there is no guarantee you will get the second lease. Or the second lease will be of the same value. They can up it. Now, I know people might be in a situation, might find that annoying, and they'll say, oh no, we've got this bulletproof, etc. Well, I've heard a lot of people who thought that they had that guaranteed, but when it came to it, they didn't, and it ended up in legal battles, and a couple of them lost, and they were certain they were in the right. One of them ended up leaving, lost a lot, the other one ended up paying a lot more for the second lease. Now, I don't want to go down that route, but I will probably do one day, because that's what I'm saying. Why do we build a house? You build a house for, I would say, one or two reasons: financial, or because it's your dream, because it's how you want to live. And that is my dream. I would like to have a dream home one day. Nothing too fancy, you know, some nice bedrooms. You know, I don't know, 4 or 5 bedrooms, maybe a swimming pool. I had a swimming pool for a long time ago in Thailand, didn't like it. It was a lot of work, a lot of effort, never used it. But the point is somewhere nice, somewhere, the kind of place I've always dreamt about living, and it's mine. Because I couldn't afford to do that in the UK, and who would want to with the weather there? But I will be able, well, I could do it now, but I won't for the reasons I just said. But I will do it, or intend to do it in the future. Because at 52, if I leased the land, I would be 75, 80, 82, depending on when the lease ran out, depending on the country. I may well still be alive then, you know. And the last thing I want at that age, or I'm going to want at that age, is the possibility I'm going to lose my home and get kicked out of the place I intended to end my days. However, when I get to 65, something like that, 60, that will change things. You know, it's very, very unlikely that I'm going to live to 85, 90. You know, I mean, I would be able to take that risk then, or I would take that risk then. So it's a question of doing it when. I personally think at 52 years of age, I'm too young. And I'm not comfortable with any of the other options that we talked about earlier, in terms of putting in someone else's name, forming a corporation, etc. Because it doesn't make sense to me for the reasons I've said, but equally it doesn't make sense to me because I don't know where I want to live, which is a huge one. You know, when I build this house, I will not be building it as an investment. I will be building it as a place to end my days. Now, when I first got to the Philippines, I didn't like Dumaguete, didn't like Sibilan. Went over to Sikihor, I thought I'd found my nirvana. I thought this place is perfect. I love it here. I'm as happy here as I've been anywhere in the world. I couldn't see myself leaving. Well, anyone who watched the channel knows how that ended. You know, after 6 months there, I couldn't stand the place for a variety of reasons. Now, what would have happened if I'd bought land then? You know, what would have been the point? You know, I'd be stuck with a half-built house, which I couldn't get rid of, and I'd have to have left it, or I'd have had to stay there, unhappy, until it was finished, then try and... But the point is, it would be a hassle. I would have a property in a place that I am in no hurry to go back to, ever. I mean, I get invited back by friends once in a while. I may go back there for the odd weekend in the future, but at the moment now. But the last thing I want is to have had a property there. Where I want to be living at 60, I have not got a clue. And when I get to 60, 65, I may well have the problem still of not knowing where I want to build this house. At this moment in time, it's unlikely to be the Philippines, I'll tell you that. I mean, I'm on the 1 year mark. I'll do a video in the next couple of weeks reflecting on my 1 year in. But I'll do another year here, but I'm not loving it. I'm being honest with you. There are certain aspects I like. I'm enjoying my relationship. I'm enjoying, you know, the social life and that here. But I don't know how I'll feel in another 12 months. Things could change. It could be much better, but certainly, even if they didn't have the regulations in terms of, you know, I could own the land or whatever, I would not be building property here in Bacon now. You know, that's the reality. And the other reason I would not build land or property now is you have no idea where in the future is going to be the best place to build. In the sense that at this moment in time, you can't own the land in Thailand if you build a house. But who is to say that that won't change in the future? You know, it could be in 10 years' time in the Philippines, they change the visa regulations, they cut back on the 36 month. I'm not saying they will, but they could do that. They could encourage people to get marriage visas. They could bring in these new divorce laws, which they keep talking about, and making it, streamline them. And they could allow Westerners to own land. I mean, they keep musing the idea in Thailand, if you're like, you know, you've got a lot of cash and you invest $1 million in the country, that you could buy land or whatever. You don't know how these things are going to change. But none of this so far, I've talked about my motivations and why I won't do things now and why I might do things in the future. But take that aside, it's the risks. It's the risks in countries like this. And again, it's risk and reward, because it's a lot riskier in the West. But as I said, I can't afford to build a dream home in London. I can afford to build a dream home here. In fact, I don't think there's anywhere in the UK I could build a massive house, unless I started working again, started another business, not off my funds. Because if you don't know, I've got property in the UK. That's how I live off the passive income from that. Now my plan is, as I say, when I get to a certain age, I will sell one of the houses and I will use that to build a house here. I could do that now, but as I've said, no idea I want to build it. You know, not an option for me now for the reasons I've already outlined. But if you are going to do it, and this will be my advice, I know I said I wouldn't give advice, I said it was just my opinion, you've got to be damn careful in a place like this, or any Asian country, because things can happen that you can't account for. You can get a solicitor over here to do all the land checks, do whatever they've got to do, say the land is yours, you know, get people to sign bits of paper, and it can all turn to shit overnight. Probably won't straight away, but you can start building the house, you can have it all done. The day you're finished, there can be some relative that comes out of the woodwork with some paper deed, which is this, because they don't have the same land registry systems here as they do in, you know, in the UK. I'm sure it's the same in most Western countries. Your solicitor can go on the land registry, she can see the boundaries, etc. They can see the deeds, they've got the certificate of sales. You know, you've got all this stuff. Yeah, someone could just come out with a piece of paper, she's a cousin of this, or they have a dispute, yeah, you bought it off this one, but it wasn't theirs to sell, etc. Sometimes there'll be a genuine dispute, sometimes it'll be a scam, sometimes it'll be the long game, it's what they were planning all along. You know, get you to come in, build the land, etc., etc. I'm not saying it will happen, but it can happen. But take that out of the equation. Even if that doesn't happen, even if you don't, and you will have no recourse for your solicitor, you know, good luck with that. All the solicitor will say is, well, we didn't know, we checked this, but then that document's not legal anymore because they challenged that, etc., etc. You know, it's a nightmare. And there are a hell of a lot of scammers over here, poor people with land who will quite happily do that. There are a lot of very decent people who I don't believe for 1 second would do that. Same in any country. You will get scammers in any country. The difference is over here, the law will very often favour the scammers. Not so much so in Western countries. But there are always risks. And there are certainly inherent risks, you know, with these new, a lot of expats who are scammed by, you know, new condo developments and that by developers. No intention of building it. They just want your deposit. They promise you your deposit, you know, give them the money. They promise they'll build it in 2 or 3 years, and then you'll get a return of 7% guaranteed, and you'll get a gold visa and all this bullshit. You know, they never build it. It happens. The project goes bankrupt. It collapses. You lose everything. But that can happen in Western countries. You know, that happens in Spain. You had a lot of that. You know, it's happened in Turkey. It's happened in lots of countries. Me personally, I would never buy anything that hadn't been built yet. If they need my money to build that development, then they've got 2 hopes: Bob and no. Not doing it. You know, I want to be able to see it. I want to be able to touch it. I want to go in. Would never take that risk, and I would strongly advise anyone who's thinking about doing it: don't do it. Don't buy a new development. Buy something that's already there. But anyway, up to you though. You do what you want to do. One of the problems you've got here, even if no one comes out or tries to, you know, screw you or take advantage of you and all the rest of it, one of the big problems you've got in a country like this is there are no real planning regulations. You know, you do not know what someone is going to build next door. You know, they take the attitude, certainly in the village I was living in Thailand, in Bangkok, it's your land, you can build what you want. I mean, if someone wants to, you know, if you build your little house and then someone wants to come and build a skyscraper next door to you that can, you know, look straight in, no problem at all. You know, they can do it. It's their land. Build what they want. It's not like the UK where you've got to get planning permission and, you know, the planning board's got to look at it and say, do the bricks match the fitting of the ambience of the village and all the rest of it, and, you know, who objects to it and that. They can just do it. You could suddenly have a pig farm next year. You know what I mean? Anything can happen. Now, to be fair though, not seen that so much. It always amazes me when you go to, like, you know, the villages around there. they all seem to fit. You don't really get many shacks next to each other. You know, when you mention that in England, do away with planning permission, people, oh, you know, oh, it needs to be governed. Worked quite well in a lot of Asian countries, that. But it's a risk. You don't know who's going to come to you next door. Now, classic example of this is we have friends who live in Darwin, just down the road. They built a new house, nice little place. Cost them a lot though. I'm surprised it cost them as much as it did. I think it was about £60,000, and it's not much bigger than this place. And I personally, I'm not going to mention that I wouldn't want to live there. Not for that price. I'm happier here. But they built a house. They're happy with it. That's the most important bit. It's right close to the beach. He likes to go snorkeling every morning, you know. But the place across the road, about 6 months ago, they started slaughtering pigs. Now they say it's not a business because they're not allowed to open a business because it's a residential place, but they are killing 4 to 5 pigs a day. Now, it's getting to them, and I understand entirely because he was telling me the first time I went round there, he was saying like he didn't think it would bother him, but the way they kill these pigs, they cut their throats and they are just making so much noise, etc., etc. I heard it a couple of days ago, well last week rather. They did it here because it was one of the fiestas, and I made the mistake of going around thinking it was a water truck. Went round there just as they were about to do it with this pig, and awful sound. Never want to hear it again. I had to come into the bedroom, you know, put the aircon on, music on full loud, and it went on for a long time. Call me lily-livered, call me soft, fine, I am, but it's got me seriously thinking whether I'm going to eat pork again. I couldn't live like that. I could not put up with that going on 5 times a day. It wouldn't matter how much money I lost on the house, I would not stay there. And that could happen. That could happen here. We could have a catastrophe tomorrow. The water was out for 4 days, 5 days. We didn't realise it was out for the first couple of days. But it's because we've got a water tank. So, and of course, the Philippines being the Philippines, no one tells you. So I'm talking to neighbours each day about the weather because it had been heavy rain. We've had a couple of cyclones. And not at one point did they say, oh, and the water's off. So because we had the tank, we get going for a couple of days longer. Until we realised, and I came home one day, and the tank was going la 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 la. And the landlord had said to me, if ever you hear that sound, switch it off straight away, because it will blow the pump. Now obviously what had happened is, we'd not known it had run out of water, the water had gone down. The tank is now blown. The water came on 2 days ago, but our tank is screwed. So, and it's going to cost him a lot to fix it. Now the point is he might not fix it, and that might be my key to go. He might not fix it, and the water might go off for a month. Again, I can leave. If I bought this house, I couldn't do it. You know, so it's not just a question of, you know, having it all done right, doing your due diligence, because even if you do your due diligence, and that is key, you've got to do your due diligence. If you don't do it, if you just buy land, you don't look into it, with the greatest respect, you're a bloody fool. But even if you do your due diligence, even if you tick every box, it can still go wrong. And even if it doesn't go wrong in terms of ownership and claims and things, something like this can always happen here, with the pigs being slaughtered, or, you know, a neighbour with the karaoke, etc, etc, etc. And your options are limited. I know people will say, go and see the barangay captain, but it's not as simple as that. Sometimes the barangay captains, and I've never dealt with one, dealt with the police, as you know, when I had that incident over in Sigil, and they weren't great. They were polite and helpful, but they were about as much use as tits on a ball. I mean, they just weren't any use whatsoever. Now, I have heard fantastic things about barangay captains, how they help with problems and things. Equally, I've heard of problems with barangay captains where they have been zero help whatsoever. Now, take this place. Say we have a problem with a neighbour across the road, and we go and see the barangay captain. The barangay captain might come down on our side. He might agree with us. He might fix the problem. But how does that leave us with that neighbour? What's the relationship going to be with that neighbour? And how many cousins and aunts and uncles does she have in the area? Maybe the barangay captain's her uncle. Maybe he's her cousin. You just don't know. And that's what we got the situation with our friends with the pigs. I said to him, like, can't you go and see the barangay captain? Basically said, they're all related. All the people here know each other, etc. They've been good to us so far. There might be a problem with the paperwork at the house. They need someone else. I'm not going to go into full details. Don't quite understand them and it's not my business. But basically, one of the people they need to sign something off, because they still haven't got a final signature, even though they've built a house, is the aunt of the guy who's across the road with the pigs. So it's a difficult situation. And those are the realities of building a house here. However, that doesn't mean don't do it. There are people I've met here and I 100% get this. I 100% see the logic and I 100% would do the same thing if I was in their situation. I know guys over here and guys in Thailand who want to build a house because they want to have a dream home, because they want their wife to be happy or their girlfriend, and equally they want them to have the house when they die. And I get that 100%, and if I was them, I would do exactly the same thing. If I get to 70 years old, touch wood, and I'm in a firm relationship, I'm married, I've got a long-term girlfriend, whoever I'm with at that time, if I've still got my property in the UK, I will leave it to them. I don't have any kids, don't have any brothers and sisters that I have anything to do with. My parents, no doubt, will be long gone then. So who am I going to leave it to? I'm going to leave it to them. But how easy is it going to be for them to get that? How long and convoluted is the process going to be? No, what I'll do, I envisage doing anyway, is build a house. Put it in their name. Put it in our kids' names or whatever, depending if we've got any. But the point would be, I would be doing that for a standard of living, but I'm not doing it for a financial return for myself. I'm doing it for them, so they have something tangible when I'm gone. I get that. That makes a hell of a lot of sense for me to do that, and I entirely understand why they were doing it. A bit of a no-brainer. Now, I'm not talking about, someone you've met for a couple of months, but I know people here who've been in relationships for Filipinos for 20, 30, 40 years. My God, if you don't take the risk then, if you don't trust them at that stage, when will you ever trust them? You know what I mean? You shouldn't be in a relationship. So I am not, to summarise, I am not against building property in the Philippines or in Thailand or whatever. I'm just saying, ask yourself why you want to do it. Think about it long and hard. I know a lot of us seem to have this idea that, you get in a relationship, you build a house, etc., etc., because that's what you kind of programmed from day one. But it's not always the best route to take. If you're in a relationship, you're in it for the first 1 or 2 years, just take a few years, to see how a relationship pans out. Don't rush into it. As I say, there are no costs, benefits that I can see, financial benefits to building straight away in terms of what you're saving on rent and things. There are a million things that can go wrong. Slight exaggeration, there's a lot that can go wrong. And it's a good way of testing your relationship. If your partner's saying to you, no, we want a house now, and you're saying you're not comfortable, and they keep pushing, these are the warnings to get out of the relationship, and see how long. I personally would not think about building a house anywhere until I'd lived there for a long time. I was in Petrobras for 5 years. That was never, I didn't build a house in case things went wrong with a relationship, etc., etc., and they did. They went wrong, And I always thought they might do. Now, because I had that mindset, is that what made them go wrong? I don't know. All I know is I have never lost a house in my life. I've been divorced twice. Both times, We've gone our separate ways. Shake our hands, kiss on the cheek. They've never wanted my property. I've never wanted anything from them. And we've just gone our way and we're friends and we still keep on talking. Because it's all about taking the time to find you in the right relationship. Things don't have to be bitter and twisted. Anyway, that's a different story. And it's about taking calculated risks. It's about weighing up the pros and the cons and not rushing into anything. And that applies to so much in life. Anyway, here endeth the sermon. I think I've covered it all from my viewpoint in terms of, you know, why I'm not doing it yet, why I will do it in the future, what the rewards and the risks are of doing it. But like anything in life, you know, make your own decision. You know, do what works for you. If you want to do it, do it. But don't blame people if it goes wrong. Don't be one of these bitter and twisted people you get and say, oh, my wife ripped me off or my girlfriend took this and that or whatever. You're the one that did it. I've got sympathy for you. I'm sorry that it happened. But don't get all anti the Filipinos, anti the Thais, they took this and took that. You were the one that rushed into it, didn't take the necessary precautions. You know, it's like anything in life. It's like if you've got a house and you don't pay the building insurance and it burns down. Whose fault is that? You know? If it works out for you, fine. We're all different. We've all got our own little dreams and things. You know, basically do what you want. I'm not telling anyone how to, it might sound like I am, I'm not. People ask the question, I'm answering why in my situation. You know, what works for me might not work for you. At the end of the day, do what you want to do, you're adults. If you can afford to build it, then obviously you've made the right decisions in your life. You're not an idiot, presumably. So, you know, do what works for you anyway. I'm just chewing the fat here. So there you go. I've run out of things to say. So I'll end it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, it'd be fantastic if you did. Whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe, be lucky.